I told Cheyenne I didn't want to startle anybody, and there I gavel us to order 30 seconds early. That's good for Utah time. Anyway, we want to welcome everybody to the Washington County Board of Commissioners meeting and appreciate you being here. As we start our meeting today, we have the privilege of having our invocation given by Sharon Shores from the Universal Life Church Ministry and also a member of our local Interfaith Council. And she will be joining us via Zoom, after which we have the privilege of having our Pledge of Allegiance being led by Sergeant Jim Haney, U.S. Marine Corps retired. And we want to thank him for being here as well and thank him for his service to our country.
Thank you.
Sharon, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So let's bow our heads. Dear wise and loving Father, first let me say thank you on behalf of all who are gathered here today. Thank you for your many and abundant blessings. Thank you for life itself, for the measure of health that we need to fulfill our callings, for sustenance and for friendship. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing appropriate responsibilities. Thank you also for the freedom to embrace you. Thank you for loving us even so from your boundless and gracious nature. In the scriptures you said that citizens ought to obey the governing authorities, since you have established those very authorities to promote peace, order, and justice. Therefore, I pray for our mayor, for the various levels of the city officials, and in particular for this assembled council. I am asking that you graciously grant them wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues of our times, a sense of the welfare and true needs of our people, a keen thirst for justice and righteousness, confidence in what is good and fitting, the ability to work together in harmony even when there is honest disagreement, and most of all, personal peace in their lives and joy in their task. I pray for the agenda set forth before them today. Please give an assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work in our community. In your blessed name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Sharon.
First, let me say thank you for the privilege of being here this afternoon, Washington County Board. So that thank you again for the privilege of doing this.
No, thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I say it every meeting, but our invocation given by the Interfaith Council and our Pledge of Allegiance given by our veterans is just, it's the best part of the meeting. It makes me appreciate the country we live in. Our first item is our consent agenda. The consent agenda is a means of expediting the consideration of routine matters. If a commissioner requests that items be removed from the consent agenda, those items are placed at the beginning of the regular agenda. Other than requests to remove items, a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda is not debatable.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to approve today's consent agenda, consisting of item A, consideration of auditor-approved claims for payment for August 19th, 2020 through September 1st, 2020. Item B, consideration of regular commission meeting minutes of August 18th, 2020. Item C, consideration of administrative adjustments for personal property. Item D, consideration of applications for property tax abatements, of which there are 8. Item E, consideration of execution of tenant estoppel from rearrangement with Wyco Site Management, LLC. And finally, item F, acknowledgement of publishing, notice of adoption of ordinance number 2020-1161-0 on Saturday, August 22nd, 2020. That would be my motion.
Second.
Very good. I have a motion and a second to adopt our consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Our first item is a consideration of our purchase request. Ray Boyer is here to, and I like this. We don't have very many, so
Yeah. Happens from time to time.
yeah.
The first one here is for tourism. It's a funding contribution for the Snake Hollow Bike Park parking lot project. That's a total of $200,000. The second one here is for the fair. This was for the sound for the derby and the food court, and the labor costs included in both of those for $12,400. And the final one is for the roads. This is for equipment fuel for a total of $17,123.70. And unless there's any questions, that's all I have.
Very good.
Well, I move that we approve those three purchase requests that Ray has presented, and a particular note to the wild and crazy good deal we get on diesel fuel. And I appreciate Ron and his crew and you negotiated.
Dean puts it out to bid every time.
Nice.
Very good.
That's my motion.
We
I will
have-
second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the purchase request. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes. Thank you very much. Our second item on our regular agenda is presentation of the 2020 Washington County Fair Report. Our own Susie Lafayette is here, the Miss Washington County Fair person.
Yes. I thank you, Commissioners, for allowing me to come and just do a quick report of the Washington County Fair. This was our 160th year of the Washington County Fair. I don't know if many people knew that. So I just wanted to point out that the fair, when you talk about tradition, started with John D. Lee in Washington, where people would come and they would bring straw hats and moccasins and cotton and wool, and not a whole lot has changed, but we have had some changes from maybe not so many moccasins or straw hats, but you can see that these pictures I pulled out from Lynn Clark and the Historical Society has always been about agriculture and fruits and vegetables, and this is an awesome display you can see in 1909 with all of the, I'm assuming those are big pumpkins and melons, but we had a gigantic pumpkin I couldn't wrap my arms around. As you know, we've had a lot of changes this year with the Washington County Fair. Because of COVID, one of those was our boxing was canceled, mostly because USA Boxing didn't sanction any boxing. Our royalty, our Miss Washington County royalty, was also canceled because Miss Utah and the Miss America organization canceled their pageants. And then we made some changes with our petting zoo, and we changed it to be our animal education center. The U.S. Department of Agriculture wouldn't let us pet the animals this year, so we did a lot of changes with that area. And I kind of just want to take you through some of the various buildings and why do you go to the fair. The first thing, many people go to the fair is because they've made an item this year. And with COVID, we had a lot of people who were home. Maybe they picked up a new skill. So we can kind of see these are, this year, something new we've made changes to was we went all online with our registration. You can see Mr. Jackman there with his pumpkin and eggs that he's bringing in. And so we had a lot of people who were gardening. There's our pumpkins and our sunflowers, that gigantic squash, really the width of the table. So we had many, many entries. They weren't as numerous as the years previous. We're blaming COVID on that. But another reason is because we also limited the number of entries a person could enter and submit, which we felt kind of upped our, I don't know, it upped it. We upped our premiums as well. So that was in the Harmony, in our newly air-conditioned building that we have. It was beautiful for the fair. We didn't have to walk in with a fan and walk around all the water spots in the swamp cooler. So many people come because they have an entry. Other people come because Oh, I want to point out really quick, Washington City was our spotlight city this year and brought in that beautiful display. We kicked it off, our fair, with our ribbon cutting, and Faith Stapley and her husband Evan were our grand marshals. Kicked off with a ribbon cutting there in Washington City with the national anthem, and then our parade on Tuesday night. Oh, I threw in some fun pictures that you don't see behind the scenes. We're so appreciative of our sheriff's department, our sheriff's office, for leading us off in our parade. We had nearly 60 entries in our parade this year. I want to do a caption this.
Eating candy.
And Commissioner Almquist was really frugal on his candy throwing, like one piece at a time. And I think Commissioner Iverson and Cox just were chucking out
Let it be
handfuls.
known that I was not quite as frugal.
Good, because I still have 4 bags of candy in my office left over from that parade. Our theme this year was Better Together, and so we had a lot of floats that really incorporated that theme of better together, especially during this time of COVID and where you're self-isolating and quarantining. Just some really fun entries. I think Washington City might be the new home of the Washington County Fair Parade. It was a fantastic route, and it was a fun route, and they have a great turnout there at the parade. We also had our kickoff party there at the park that evening right after the parade. We estimate just a couple hundred people. We just did it from 7 to about 9:30. We gave away some Derby tickets and Carnival tickets, and somebody walked away with a 50-inch screen TV, courtesy of InfoWest. Our Carnival. People come to the fair because they love the Carnival. Our numbers for the Carnival were up this year, if you can believe it. This is another one of those caption this, because her face is awesome. That's kind of me on those rides. So you can see our Carnival opened at 4 o'clock. Masks, no masks, it didn't matter because people were having fun during our Carnival. Open every night from 4 to about 11 o'clock p.m. It just was a really good time. That was City of Fun Carnival. Another reason people come to the fair is maybe they are coming because we did a military tribute this year. And I know at the last commission meeting you talked about this. We garnered submissions for our military tribute for that wall back there that you see. We had about 80 submissions that came in, and we posted those there. We did a tribute to our World War II veterans with a proclamation from our county commission. We did this walk-in with our veterans. We had about 16 in attendance, World War II veterans that still live here in Washington County, and just really celebrated them and that's them waving at us, their sacrifice in World War II and what that means for us as a future generation. Some people come to the fair because we have barrel racing. That happens Thursday night. What was interesting about both barrel racing and junior rodeo was 1/4 of our participants came from out of state. We don't limit how many people can enter either of those events, but it kind of just shows that people are wanting to do something. With our junior rodeo that happens on Friday night, we had about 88 participants. Again, about 1/4 of those came from out of state. Virginia Bundy does our rodeo. She works in the assessor's office. I have a great board that know what they're doing because I don't know anything about horses except to stay off of them. Another reason people come to the fair is because of our animal education center and our petting zoo, which I already mentioned. We had these signs that say, "Do not touch the animals." So we rearranged our indoor arena to create a flow where people could easily continue to walk through, very much like a regular zoo. And this flow worked fantastic. The alpacas there were very, very friendly. And they were very popular. We had goats, we had Daisy, the cow, we had a draft horse, we had llamas, we had just kind of about everything, which was great because every school in the district brought animals. So we had animals from Water Canyon High School, from Enterprise High School, and for them, this is their big fundraiser, and they're able to do that at the Washington County Fair. Another reason people come is maybe they want to see Ken Rolfsness at contests, and they want to see how much free food they can eat at the Washington County Fair. We have bingo, we have our chicken wing contest, hottest blazing hot chicken wings. We have our money cube. Those are always really popular at the Washington County Fair. Those events usually happen, and there's Ken eating a chicken wing. He's also on my board. So that's another reason why people come to the fair. Another reason people come is because we have fun games and vendors. Our numbers for vendors were down a little bit this year, which wasn't unexpected. But what we did to make up for the lack of vendors was I put these big inflatables inside the Grafton building. People always complain about the heat during the county fair, so to combat some of that heat, we put these big inflatable rides inside with those bleachers. Those are actually our boxing bleachers, and we moved them inside the Grafton building. Henna tattoos, she was really popular, but vendors, some people come for vendors. We had the SGU helicopter that came in. They were really popular. Smash Labs, right next to them, was really popular as well. And it was just a place to escape the heat. One thing we did different this year was added this food court area and this big food tent outside in the Grafton parking lot. And this was our main stage. Entertainment was a huge hit this year because we had so many awesome bands. And all the names are really weird, like the Severed Society and Six String Circus and Apollo's Army and 1111, and they're all, what's great is they're all local bands, but they all like have names that you're never, ever going to remember. We had Inside Entertainment. This was a dance fusion. They created quite a stir right there in the Grafton building. And I love that picture of the little girl holding her ears because it was apparently too loud, and she's one of the dancers. So it was really cute. But one thing that also draws people to the fair is the entertainment, and because their kids are performing. We had our Mad Scientist every night at the fair, so not only fun but educational. Heart of Country Swing came and performed a couple of times. I wish I was that thin where I could be lifted in the air. And probably one of the highlights at the end of the fair is our demolition derby. We contract out with Stir and Dirt Racing out of northern Utah. They come and they put on this derby for us. We had about 38 cars at our demolition derby. Our numbers for the demolition derby were down this year, much like everything else, about 25%. Bikers Against Child Abuse were an amazing help. They came and helped us man the perimeter of our demolition derby, which took a lot of pressure off of the board and Commissioner Iverson, who did it last year. We just had something else for the commissioner during the derby. So about 38 cars. We paid out about $45,000. So we used that gate sales to help with the funding of the demolition derby. So again, like I said, our numbers were about 25% down with our demolition derby, which was kind of standard across the board with our parking and our entries. Some great cars. We had a lot. We had a few locals that were in the demolition derby, but most of the guys that I talked to were from California or Nevada. We had a few from Cedar City. We're very appreciative to the Hurricane Fire Department who was there. I know Chief Coleman is here, to his crew. He also did our fireworks every single night at the end of the county fair. We're just very thankful for all the different entities that help during the fair. So that was kind of just some of the fun wrap-ups. I have a really fun video of Commissioner Iverson in his paint suit right here. He starts out with $100 $1 bills, and the kids had to chase him. We called it "Get Your Tax Dollars Back." And he had to pretend to trip quote unquote, and let the kids catch them. I don't know if you really did pretend or if you really did fall there, Commissioner. But that was a little fun moment during the Derby where we had a lull as we were waiting for the heats to redo. So just some fun things that happened at the county fair. Given all of the circumstances, I couldn't have done any of it without a fantastic board of directors who, like I said, they know what they're doing, from baby contests to entertainment to the parade to our boxing, which we didn't know we were going to cancel until middle of June, to our 4-H and Animal Education Center and barrel racing, Renda in the treasurer's office, who is a godsend with everything entries and premiums. This board has a combined experience of nearly 175 years of fair experience. So, apparently I really like this outfit. Note. Anyway, so we really couldn't have done the fair. People will say, oh, Suze, you did an amazing job with the Washington County Fair as fair director, but I give credit to all of the people behind the scenes that you don't see. We were just recently recognized by Hurricane Valley Chamber of Commerce as the Business of the Month for August. Because they recognized the hard work that this board and all the volunteers have done to put on a county fair in a time when there's not a lot of things happening. So we're very thankful to the commissioners and to the county for allowing this event to go forward. We're really excited to look forward to 2021, maybe some changes, maybe some date changes. We hope boxing will come back, our royalty will be back, better than ever.
Thank you so much, Susie. It really was a lot of fun, and I'll tell you, in a year like 2020, it just felt normal. That was what I liked most about the fair. Is just it felt normal. It felt good. The weather actually cooperated. It wasn't abusively hot.
No,
it was.
No.
It was.
We
actually,
were sandwiched right in between 2 weekends of excessive heat warnings,
absolutely.
And it was only 100.
Yeah, it was actually.
So when I told all the guys from northern Utah, hey, be thankful, it's only 100.
Yeah.
You know.
What you complaining about, sissies?
Yeah, right?
Yeah, it was.
Grab a water bottle.
A well-timed cold snap.
Yes, it really was.
Exactly.
Well,
no, it was fun.
And I can add to it, Susie, you're the heart and soul of it. We hired you for the purpose of pulling off great fairs, and you did so amongst all of these challenges. And just as another follow-up, everybody across the nation worries about people getting together in group. And despite all the efforts that you made to keep people apart and wearing masks, and though not mandating them, but be responsible, according to the county health department and the numbers that generated from this, there was no indication that the fair
Correct.
contributed to the spread of COVID one bit.
Yes, I can sleep now.
And we can tell you that we are daily updated on cases and hospitalizations and, of course, the sadness of any deaths. But having said that, there's absolutely no connection to the fair. So
Yes.
that's a great job on your part.
you.
Really appreciate your work.
Thank
Absolutely.
you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Susie.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just in final comment, I really enjoyed the parade being in Washington City. I thought Washington City just really came out and supported the parade. It was a lot of fun. And I have to say, we did invest in putting air conditioning into the Harmony building, and you could notice it was very nice inside the building. So anyway, thanks a lot. It's great. Our third item is consideration of resolution R-2020-2646, a resolution appointing a member to the Habitat Conservation Advisory Committee. Commissioner Cox?
I would be happy to speak to that, Commissioner Iverson. Washington County manages the Red Cliffs Desert Reserve, and that duty actually falls to the County Commission under its administrative umbrella. So many of the questions that we deal with in managing the Red Cliffs Desert Reserve, though, require specific expertise and factual information that we may not be quite so expert on. And because of that, we have what is called the Habitat Conservation Advisory Committee. The Habitat Conservation Advisory Committee is composed of individuals who have the authority and the knowledge to make sound recommendations to the county commission. That's an advising board. And Yvette Converse is nominated to replace the interim acting field supervisor, Laura Roman. Yvette is the state director for Fish and Wildlife. It's great to have somebody with her background and at that level advising the county commission. She has experience also at the state level, and so I think she's going to be a really good fit for it. And so Resolution R 2020-2641 would appoint Yvette Converse to the Habitat Conservation Advisory Committee for the duration of her term as the state director. So that's why it's not bounded by a specific date like many of the appointments that we make. And so I would make a motion in support of the resolution R 2020-2641.
Very good. I have a
Second.
motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. I'll just make one comment about the Habitat Conservation Plan, the Habitat Conservation Advisory Committee that I've picked up on a little bit. People need to appreciate that the county is really dealing with the federal law, which is in the Endangered Species Act. And by having this in place, it helps us to navigate as a community, as a county, and also helps private property owners who are in the county navigate through the Endangered Species Act. If we didn't have it, they would have to be dealing directly with the federal agencies, which would create tremendous headache and heartache in this county. So I noticed on social media there was a couple questions about why we were so involved, and that's just a really short answer that I just threw out there. Item 4 is consideration of resolution R-2020-2642, a resolution approving a coronavirus relief funds grant donation agreement between Washington County and St. George Interlocal Agency. Commissioner Cox?
Again, the Washington County St. George Interlocal Agency runs and operates the Dixie Center. The Dixie Center has really been impacted as much as any specific entity by COVID-19 as any that I can think of in Washington County. It caused virtually the cancellation of all of the conventions and majority of the conferences that are held there. We're seeing a real change in how people meet and network, and it's become apparent that the Dixie Center, in an effort to stay abreast of those changes, just as this meeting is being Zoomed now and is on Facebook Live, we need to have that same type of capability at the convention center. And so this resolution works hand in hand with an agreement with the interlocal to allow for the convention center to pick up the equipment necessary, and those, for example, are hand tilt and zoom cameras, speakers, amplifiers, video codec system, just the type of things that we'd need to be able to link our conference center with other conference centers and other remote locations. All of that equipment comes to an estimated total of $596,965. I feel it's necessary that we keep the Dixie Center viable, and especially as it's been impacted by COVID-19. I would make a motion in support of Resolution R 2020-2642, a resolution approving a coronavirus relief funds grant donation agreement between Washington County and the Washington County St. George Interlocal Agency.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Item 5 is related. We have several items that are related to CARES Act funding. Item 5 is consideration of resolution R-2020-2646, a resolution providing coronavirus relief funds to purchase UV book cleaners for Washington County libraries. And I have Commissioner Almquist, but I also believe that you have our library director here, Joel Tucker.
Yes.
Joel, if you'd like
Joel,
to.
why don't you come up and tell us? Obviously, one of the things that people are saying is don't handle each other's stuff. And if that's books, we want them to feel comfortable using the libraries.
At the library, we like to share,
Yeah.
which is kind of a problem with COVID. So we had library board meeting recently. One of the WISE library board members recommended I look into UV cleaning. I know that in Santa Clara, we have our quarantine process where we hold books for 72 hours, which causes quite a few complications with patrons when they return an item. They expect it to be checked in and not be charged a fine. So we still don't charge them fines, but there's a little bit of cleanup process that goes through, takes
Sure.
some time and some manpower. At the other libraries, it just became overwhelming. We couldn't do the 72-hour hold. So we cleaned the outside of the book and put it back into circulation. But really, there's some research that goes into how long it stays on paper, and it depends on the type of paper. And really what these UV book cleaners will do, set them inside. You could set 6 books at a time, set them in, and basically like a microwave, nuke them for 30 seconds with UV rays, and pull them back out. And it's supposed to 95% bacteria and viruses like the coronavirus is supposed to catch for those things too. So, I think this is going to be less work as far as cleaning one book at a time. You just stick them in 30 seconds, turn it off, pull out the books, stick them in again, and really help the branches like Santa Clara, who are, instead of quarantining for 72 hours, they could be able to just use this machine and get the books back into circulation quicker and cleaner and safer.
Sure.
Sounds good.
Well, and it looks like here you're asking for 9 of them. So each branch location will receive one?
Each branch will receive 1. St. George will receive 2. We have
2 for the volume.
That's kind of the main hub of the branches. So we have our main book drop, and then as stuff comes in and out through our courier system, we have that capability.
So is it big enough that I could like fit in there and you could zap me for 30 seconds?
No, sir. Sorry.
Not that big.
Not a Santana machine. It doesn't work that way.
Well, I appreciate that report and all the other work that you're doing to satisfy the customers. Why don't you, while you're up here, tell us a little bit about the ribbon cutting of the makerspace in the Washington City Library?
Absolutely. We have actually 2 big events going on right now. One is the good news of the ribbon cutting. We opened up the Washington Makerspace, have a green screen room. I talked a little bit about it at the last commission meeting, I think, but sound room, green screen, and some great equipment for people to do podcasts, make movies, make an album, do some fun creative stuff. Makerspace. The other issue that we're dealing with right now is not so fun. In the basement of the St. George branch, we got impacted a little bit from the recent flooding. The water came up through the floor, cracked the concrete. I can't believe that was the path of least resistance, was through concrete, but it happened. So we're working on cleanup a little bit there and getting things squared away. We might be closed in the basement for a couple months. So some of our meeting rooms are out of commission. Some of our selectors are in new locations to do their jobs, kind of thing. And we ask for the patience of the public as we deal through that mess a little bit.
Well, and your employees there perhaps they were in shock by what they had to do the very day after the flood, but they still had a smile on their face and said, we'll get through this.
Time to get to work. But work is just a little bit more on the cleaning side than normal, so.
Very good. Thank you. Well, Chair, I would move that we consider make a motion to consider the resolution number R 2020-2643, providing coronavirus relief funds to purchase UV book cleaners for the Washington County Libraries, 9 of them, with a grand total of $38,700 for all of them.
And I will second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Item 6 is consideration of resolution R-2020-2644, a resolution providing coronavirus relief funds to purchase sign trailer and prime mover for Washington County Emergency Services. Commissioner Almquist, I have you here, but I also have Jason Whipple. our emergency operation guy, if he wouldn't. Chief, it's chief, right?
Director.
Director, okay. Well, I didn't mean to just imply guy. I mean, you know.
Oh, yeah, that's all right. So as we're going through this Corona thing, we're facing some different challenges. One of it is we were able to get some hand washing trailers, which will help us for events and actual emergencies that we can provide that way for people to wash their hands remotely. And then also the sign trailers, which will help us with, especially with the things that are coming up, like the vaccine situation that we'll have coming up, which I know they talked about today in a meeting. You're talking about like 100,000 vaccines that we've got to put out, and we got to do that twice. So this will help us with organizing those points of distribution for the vaccines, or other PPE that's coming out, all these things that is kind of being thrown upon us. But the problem we do have is in the change that we have coming in the sheriff's office and things, where the vehicles that we were planning on being able to move these vehicles with, or these trailers with, is no longer going to be there. So with this ability of a prime mover, we can move these sign trailers and move these hand washing station and other incident command vehicles, that if we do have these pods that come up and we need to be able to have an incident command trailer, we can be able to move them with that. So that's what it's designed to do. We can see this being used in the future for other pandemics that we would have come about. So it's kind of a long-term plan with this short-term solution with the COVID.
Very good.
Great. So with that, Chair, I'll move that we approve the item consideration of resolution number R 2020-2644, providing coronavirus relief funds to purchase sign trailers and a prime move 3/4 ton truck for Washington County Emergency Services. The sign trailer is $13,838. The truck is $54,000.
I will second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes. Item 7 is consideration of resolution R-2020-2645, a resolution supporting the preferred alternative regarding the renewal of the Washington County Desert Tortoise Incidental Take Permit and issuance of a right-of-way for the Northern Corridor. Commissioner Cox?
Mr. Chairman, I've been involved in this process for the past almost 4 years. And what is happening right here is we have a draft environmental impact statement that has been released. It's open for public comment until September 10th. Following NEPA and the statute, you have to have a range of alternatives going from a no-action alternative where they leave everything just the way it is, to a wide variety of alternatives that show that many different solutions have been explored. The county worked with Fish and Wildlife and the BLM, along with our partner Sitla and UDOT, and we narrowed in our recommendation and UDOT's application for an alternative that goes from the Red Cliffs Parkway near the southern border, but doesn't hug right on it, makes a loop around and joins the Washington Parkway. That is alternative B. It is the preferred alternative, and I'm very pleased that the BLM selected UDOT's alternative, the county's alternative, as its preferred alternative as well. This resolution allows the county to weigh in officially with comments in support of the preferred alternative. These alternatives range from looking at the T-Bone Mesa route, the original route, which we walked away from because of the bifurcation of the Red Cliffs Desert Reserve. It analyzes an alternative that hugs the southern border. It looks at a flyover option that would add an additional lane over Red Cliffs Parkway. and the Red Hills Parkway. It also looks at one-way traffic on the Boulevard and 100 South. City of St. George has said they're not interested in either of those two alternatives. And so I would make a motion in support of Resolution R 2020-2645, which allows us to support the preferred alternative regarding the renewal of the Washington County Desert Tortoise incidental take permit and the issuance of a right-of-way for the northern corridor.
Very good.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and I do want to acknowledge and appreciate all the hard work that Commissioner Cox has been putting into this. You know, I do plan to support this resolution. I will tell you that I prefer the T-Bone Mesa route, which was the original route. We allowed the biologist to weigh in on this, and the biologist, those who know me know my opinion of biologists and building roads, but at any rate, we felt like we came to some sort of compromise. At least we will have a road that'll work adequately to get people across as best we can, and so I know that this is I will put in my 2 cents since I do have the stage or the mic.
You did.
I will say that for those who want to oppose this northern corridor and act like it suddenly snuck up on us and we're sneaking a road through the middle of a national conservation area, I'll just remind them that in 2009, the very piece of legislation that created the National Conservation Area instructed the Secretary of Interior to designate a route through the National Conservation Area. So this was always anticipated. The county's been involved in this for several decades now. We're getting up to crunch time. We desperately need a route like this to get our citizens back and forth across. I mean, I say this again, Mother Nature created this beautiful landscape, but it's a rugged landscape, and there's not that many places for a right-of-way. This is the best alternative as far as the compromise of not bisecting the reserve. So with that, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Appreciate that. Let's see. Item 8 is consideration of resolution R-2020-2646, a resolution approving a donation agreement between National Park Service, U.S. Department of Interior, and Washington County, and service agreement between St. George Shuttle and Washington County for shuttle services in Zions National Park. And let's see, Commissioner Almquist.
Well, I think everyone knows that park visitation took a great hit when especially the park was saying, how do we deal with coronavirus? How do we deal with people on buses? And they tried for a little while of saying, well, drive your car up there. But as it started to get more popular, that wasn't working. They instilled back in the original contract they had with a provider, which was pre-approved, of course, by the process the Department of the Interior requires the Park Service to go through, to start the shuttle system again. And yet that was very limited as far as how many could go up into the park. And it became almost ludicrous for them to suggest, if any of you have been up into the park, to tell people, well, you can ride your bike up there or you can walk in. And people were literally walking along the side of a highway which was not suitable for traffic, while you have a bus coming by you that also created some danger. So it wasn't really a solution in any regard to just say to people, figure it out yourself. Having said that, we've been engaged with the park for several months, really, in trying to open up alternative or additional ways for people to enjoy the park. And with visitation off tremendously, we thought, why not get a few more buses in there? But the difficulty comes when you ask the park to take their current vendor who declared that they couldn't get drivers for these buses or figure out how they could make them, COVID friendly or safe for their drivers. Suddenly we hit this big block wall. But thinking more like a business, we suggested that there be other providers who could work under that contract of the original one who had the transportation route, instead of starting the whole process over, and it'd be a year from now before we got an additional vendor license. But finally, it was worked out that we could get St. George Shuttle to provide at least a bus, if not more, and that we would use CARES Act funding to help accommodate getting more people up the canyon safely. And so that's simply our agreement to use county CARES Act allocation to help by providing this additional shuttle through St. George Shuttle up to the canyon. One bus can do 7 trips a day. Takes about an hour and 15 minutes round trip. So this isn't standby. This is a regular bus worked into the schedule that will take more people up the canyon. And if anyone says, well, why are we doing that? It's strictly business related, help those in Springdale. And to quote one hotelier, he said that basically 8 out of 10 people staying the night in their hotel were complaining about the transportation into the park. With the inclusion of a standby line, with the inclusion that goes from 3 to 6, an added route by the current vendor, and now these additional routes by St. George Shuttle, those complaints have gone down to about 5 in 10. So people are still willing to complain. But we're doing our best from the county's perspective to get more people up the canyon so that they can enjoy it. And it doesn't take very many people to drive around town to see they're coming here from all over the world despite the impacts to tourism through other means. So let us just say, put our best foot forward to help them enjoy not only Zion, but greater Zion. All of the things that Kevin Lewis and his team are putting together to help people say, if you can't get to Zion National Park, go here, go there. There's other places you can access, the wilds and the beautiful country that we have here. So thanks to that team, and a long explanation, but deserved, on why this money is allocated. That's my motion.
And I will second that motion.
And just a couple notes, in this agreement, we have a duration. It'll last 90 days until November 30th, and would like to remind, this was the reason the CARES Act funding was given to the state and then came to the county, was to help us deal with businesses and industries that were directly impacted by the government's reaction to the COVID. And so I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion passes. Item 9 is consideration of resolution R-2020-2647, a resolution supporting the Lake Powell pipeline and approving the Washington County comment on the draft environmental impact statement. You know, right now, Washington County, we have comments out on the Habitat Conservation Plan renewal on the Northern Corridor, and also it is comment period for the Lake Powell pipeline. And so this resolution is really to speak out in favor of the Lake Powell pipeline. And I'd just like to speak a couple things to the pipeline. Obviously, or maybe I just want to make sure people understand that our water source all comes from the Virgin River drainage. And that is one water source that is, it's our only water source. We have no redundancy. And as we've learned this year in Washington County, we can go from drought to flood in a weekend, you know. So I'd like to tell people we have an average annual rainfall of 8 inches. And for example, St. George received almost 3 inches in an hour or so this last Sunday. And of course that caused a lot of damage. So the Lake Powell pipeline will obviously give us that redundant source and will allow us to continue to prosper in this area. Also, Lake Powell water rights are a part of the Colorado River Compact, and Utah has 700,000 acre feet of unallocated or unused water rights on the Colorado. This pipeline would be tapping into about 80,000 acre feet of that water. So it'll definitely help our current water supply. It'll help future water supply. And I always make this argument that I grew up in La Verca and as a young kid, and we were still bringing water in on the irrigation ditch, and that ditch had been carved along those canyon walls. And it really made both Hurricane had their canal on their side of the canyon, and we had ours on our side of the canyon. And it was the sacrifice of those who had built that infrastructure that allowed La Verkin to start to be a community. It was shortly after that citizens of La Verkin mortgaged their own homes to buy wooden pipe to pipe in drinking water from Tocqueville. So we have inherited a legacy. All of those who live here today have inherited a water infrastructure that was built for them by preceding generations. I know that there's many people who may be opposed to Lake Powell, but I would like to ask them, did you move here after the mid 80s? Because if you did, your water infrastructure, which is Quail Lake, was paid for by the citizens of this community in a similar fashion. And so anyway, this resolution is just us going on the record as a county commission in support of the environmental impact statement in regards to the Lake Powell pipeline. And that is my motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. With that, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Very good. We are on to Commissioner's report.
Okay,
And,
I have a couple,
yes, please.
with your permission. We get updated all the time, Tuesdays and Thursdays in particular, on the school district and how they're dealing with keeping schools open. And Dean, you're as qualified as anybody to talk about this, but I was in on the phone call this morning with Superintendent Bergeson, and he announced that there have been 10 cases detected of COVID spread amongst several schools. And of course, between students and staff, which includes teachers and others, that would be a total population of 40,000 people. And if you look at 10 cases, that is 0.00025 infection rate. And I just emphasize that the schools are to be complimented for what they're doing. The students themselves who have been saying, hey, get that mask on. I want to stay in school. You know, so do what you have to secure their involvement there. He also noted that 900 enrollments have been put in the books from those who have moved here in the last 2 months from elsewhere, indicating that the surrounding states want their kids in school. It's been a real estate boon to those who have had houses for sale or for rent to get them in on time to get to school. So that report. I also have been talking about and had a meeting today with the CJC, the Children's Justice Center, and they're talking about the fact that they've seen a dramatic increase in not only our county but Iron County as well on trying to take care of children who are being violated or suffering from some sort of abuse. And we need to have these kids where they're away from that if they're subject to it, and that means in school. So my applaud again to our district for defying what may be what other districts are doing, but I applaud them for not being panicky, which includes the school board, and putting out a plan which in 4 weeks has proven to be working. And anyway, so on another note, because we had not only a Marine sergeant,
Yes.
Yeah, here, and then we heard from Susie about the honoring of World War II vets out at the fair, that sadly 2 days ago, Dick Dixon, who has been one of our stalwarts in the community, passed away. And just to tell you a little bit about it, you can Google his story and even find his book that he wrote. But Dick Dixon, who was 98, had an incredible story, and I've sat in the same room with him and heard it. But just 2 points that I'd like to make about that. During World War II, you were pretty much had a number of missions you could fly. He was a pilot, and B-17s, whatever he was carrying, over Europe. And you know, you take off from England and you don't know what the future has, and you have hundreds of your friends that don't come back. Well, I can't remember exactly, but it was like 10 or 15 missions, somewhere in there, that you were required to fly, and then you basically tapped out. You were the lucky one. And he flew double the number of missions that he was required to do. So you can automatically see what kind of person he was. On one particular night, he says, after receiving so much flack in, his whole plane was shot up. Literally, he felt like it didn't have any walls to it at all, and it was just a flying skeleton, and limped back in on what he said was no gas into land on an airfield in England in the dark. And when he looked at the plane the next morning, he just fell to his knees and said, how did we even get here? So, in fact, that plane was retired. They said, don't even rebuild it. We can't salvage it. So we have great people around us. Get to know your veterans and hear their stories. And again, his name was Dick Dixon, and I would hope that you would look up his name and read his book. It's quite fantastic.
That time with our veterans is precious.
Yep.
And fleeting.
Well, we did talk a little bit about the flood in the library. I'll just bring that up. We did, the library was flooded again. And I think we as a county commission have decided we're going to talk to the city of St. George, and after 4 times, we're going to try this next time. It seems like each time we fix where the water we thought came in, we keep having these 100-year floods or something. So we're going to be working on that to make sure it doesn't happen again. This is the second flood that I've seen since I've been a county commissioner, and Commissioner Cox has been here through all 4 of those events, but we're going to work harder this next time. For those who may not know, we only own the space of the library, then the rest of it is owned by the city of St. George. And then I guess another comment just to report back is we did have our Dixie board meeting, our Dixie Center board meeting this morning. Along with other things, we decided that we're going to leave the name Dixie Center at the Dixie Center. That was just something that we thought we'd kind of made that point in our last meeting, but really what we'd done is ask for a study. And so we've just decided in this current environment that we're just, Dixie Center is our heritage and our name, and we're comfortable with it going forward. And my one last thing in this time of kind of division, you see all across our country, different communities that are just fracturing and pulling apart. Most of those are happening in very urbanized, our larger cities in America. It just makes me appreciate the good people of Washington County and just the spirit of community that we have here, and how people come together, how they appreciate and support the community they live in. And to what degree I can, I would encourage everyone to continue to believe in this community and be good citizens and look after each other, because that's what kind of community we really are. And it makes me proud to be a part of this community.
I agree.
Very good. With no further comment, I will gavel our meeting adjourned. So,
Thank you.